BRRRR. That spells money. Okay, not really. BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And it's how some of the best home flippers around make their money and build their real estate portfolio. Today, I'm talking to the Austin Flipsters, Lauren and Lincoln, and they're going to teach me some of their favorite field-tested flipper strategies. I'm Gabe Bolt, here to show you the small shifts that you can make in your life that will lead to a huge impact on your financial future. This is Big Change. Okay, so first, here are the basics of the BRRRR method. B is for buy. You buy a distressed property that needs some work before it's ready to rent, and because of the property's condition, it'll likely be cheaper than other homes in the area. Next up, rehab it. Transform the property so it's not only safe and sound, but attractive to renters. Not only that, but the renovations you did also improved the value of the home, and that's the key. If you hadn't guessed by now, the next R is for rent. At minimum, rent the home to cover the carrying costs of your mortgage, insurance, and upkeep. Once the mortgage payments are covered and your tenants are happy, it's time to refinance. A cash out refinance specifically. In a cash out refinance, you convert your home's equity into cash that can be used for literally anything, including buying another property, which brings us to the final R, repeat. Use the cash out refinance to buy another fixer-upper and start the whole process over again. Not gonna lie, there's a lot of risk here and it's an advanced strategy, but when you do it right, the BRRRR method can create some serious passive income and a nice real estate portfolio. But you don't have to take my word for it. Lauren and Lincoln have been renovating and flipping homes in Austin, Texas, and I've been watching their process on YouTube. They're gonna share some of their most tried and true tips for home renovations and more. Hey Lauren, hey Lincoln, welcome. Thank you for coming on the show.
Sure, thanks for having us.
Well, you guys seem like you have this down to a science. What criteria do you look at when deciding on a house to flip?
Yeah, so it's a little bit art, it's a little bit science, and there's a lot that goes into which ones that we actually pick. So that's everything from, the specific location and how quickly that's appreciating, the delta between, what we can buy it at and what we can sell it at. And then it's a factor of how complicated is the specific project. And then we just end up saying no to a lot of stuff.
Do you guys use any rules like the 70% rule for a home's ARV?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use that rule ourselves as a general rule of thumb. You want to invest 70% of what you ultimately sell it for in the purchase and the renovation of the house. So we stick to the 70% rule, and in our market, it's actually closer to the 80% rule. Because it's such a fast appreciating market, that kind of gets baked into that price.
How many projects do you guys have going on at once?
Gosh, well, we're kind of in a buying spree right now. So we've just picked up quite a few. What do we have? We're up to 8?
7 or 8.
Wow, that's a lot to manage. So with all the crazy renovations you guys have going on, how often do those go over budget?
Yeah, unfortunately they go over budget more often than we would like. That's kind of the art and science to it. So unfortunately things crop up. On our most recent project where a plumbing issue came up, we don't know if it's gonna take $350 to fix it or $15,000 to fix it, which is a big range.
But luckily for us, the Austin market is such a hot one and it's been appreciating so well that that's kind of saved our lunch on a few of these projects where we've had unexpected costs.
And part of that's the dumb luck of being in Austin, but part of that is knowing what markets you can flip in, and Austin has a lack of supply and too much demand, and that makes it a good market to be flipping in.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've seen that kind of here. I'm in New Hampshire and there's definitely that insane amount of demand for stuff. So the appreciation's been kind of crazy, but it definitely depends on your location a lot.
Right.
You mentioned the plumbing issue. Are there any other problems that you need to keep an eye out for that could really just sink a project?
Yeah, speaking of sinking a project, foundation, that's one of the ones that comes to mind.
We've had a couple times where we didn't budget to replace a roof that ended up needing it. That's definitely a big ticket item. And one of the things that we're doing more and more of is actually bigger projects. Because when you start out knowing, hey, we're gonna have to replace everything, you've already budgeted for those big ticket items to be replaced in the first place. And so, less can actually go wrong on you. If you thought you were gonna get in, get out, it's a quick flip, I don't have to touch all the various components of it and then get hit with that surprise. You know, the bigger projects that need the full gut in a lot of ways offer, you know, fewer surprises.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way to look at it. It's almost better to expect kind of everything to go wrong versus a weekend warrior expecting they can just work on it in their spare time.
Right. Yeah, we end up passing on a lot of houses where they're in too good a shape in a lot of ways, or, you know, the flooring is like a little bit dated, but not, you know, completely destroyed. I like the ones that are completely destroyed because there's not any of that residual value.
Yeah, that's a good point. So are there upgrades that aren't really worth it that you think are kind of common that people try to do?
Well, I think probably just in general, what we see is people spending too much on materials. Because what we kind of pride ourselves on is getting that high-end look, but using really affordable materials. When it comes down to it, there's not really a huge difference in quality, at least not to justify the huge difference in cost. Changing walls that don't necessarily need to be changed. Anytime you're moving any kind of structures, moving plumbing unnecessarily, you know, those kind of things can add up, and they really, at the end of the day, don't add that much to the bottom line.
So I know you've talked about a couple of projects that you've done. What's the most difficult reno that you guys have had yet, and why was that?
So actually, our latest one, it was a beast. We came in, somebody had already started the job, which is a huge mistake. You basically have to start over because you can't trust that whatever work they did was good and right. And that one was actually located near a flood zone, not in one, but that led to a lot of permitting headaches.
Being near the floodplain completely threw off what we could do with it. We had to fight the city on, you know, even being able to renovate the thing in the first place, and just the timeline just really was a drag on that one.
I think that's something that like a lot of new people probably don't take into account, is like all the permitting that goes along with stuff, all the red tape and the zoning issues that you might not really think of. You think you're just like the paint and the rehab, but you got all that other stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, in so many ways, you know, money on a renovation is not made when you're swinging a hammer or putting in tile or whatever. It's made when you find the property up front, all the, you know, hard work you put into actually finding one that's a good fit, and then planning it out, permitting it, that whole thing can make or break a project.
So out of these 5 things, which one would you guys say is the most important? Patience, math, attention to detail, budget, and timeline.
Man, this is like an SAT question. I'd probably say timeline, honestly, because that's the one that people underestimate the importance of. So I think that obviously they're all important, they're all keys.
I would say patience, because I feel like it's the foundation of all those other things. It is not gonna go according to your plan. If you don't have patience, you've got maybe one flip in you, and then you will be done forever. But, you know, with patience, you can sort of acquire all the rest of those, and it's, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, definitely. On the timeline, I know a couple people who have flipped houses and it's ended up taking, you know, twice as long as they thought or twice as much as they thought. So I think there's a lot of preparation, and then also, like you mentioned, the patience of realizing that it's not all going to go, you know, perfectly well.
Yeah.
What's the worst renovation advice that you've heard?
To people that want to renovate to their own personal dream home, to their own personal taste. We see that a lot. Where really you want to be mass appeal to as many buyers as possible, which usually means, when you don't have a YouTube channel, something very neutral that's not going to be offensive or be the reason why somebody doesn't buy the house. So I've seen where people just take it on like, oh, this is my opportunity to build what I've always dreamed of living in, but it's too specific to their taste.
I've seen people trying to virtually flip houses, you know, basically flip a house in another market. To me, it sounds like a phenomenally bad idea. You know, the furthest project we've ever done was maybe 3 hours away from us. If we'd had some of the issues that we've had in Austin on that project, it would have been a complete disaster.
Shifting to the opposite, what's some of the best investment tips that have really worked for you guys?
Yes, I think Lincoln referenced it earlier, but we say no to a lot more deals than we say yes to. I think getting deal hungry or just taking anything that comes along is not the best move, but it's something that's super tempting, especially when you're first starting out. You're like, I'm ready, let's do this. So really, that's where patience comes in again, is being patient on the deals in the first place. There will be more deals.
Yeah, and for like the projects themselves, one of the things we've had a lot of success with is overspending on one statement item and then underspending on other items. So for example, in a kitchen, we might put in really over the top nice countertops, run them up the wall as a backsplash, and that can give a halo effect to the entire project, where maybe we spend a little bit less on the flooring, but that doesn't stand out as much. And so you can achieve these higher end feels.
And a lot of times we like to do that on the things that, like he was saying, countertops, things that you can touch and feel. Hardware, people are gonna, be opening cabinet doors and they can feel if it's flimsy versus something more high quality. But the flooring, you're wearing shoes, not so much.
Are there any other things in the home that you feel are really good things to spend a lot of money on?
I like to spend more money on like a dining room chandelier that's kind of a statement piece. For $500-600, you can get some amazing chandeliers that really kind of pull in the focus into a room and give it a higher end feel. And another thing that we've been doing lately is spending a little bit more on labor for paint and doing interesting lines and choices with paint to kind of call out or highlight certain areas that the material cost isn't anymore. It's a little bit more in labor, but it can really elevate the design of the house.
So kind of wrapping up here, if someone is looking to kind of get started in the flipping business, what would be a small step that they could take to start learning about the process, and where would you kind of suggest that they start?
Well, obviously they need to subscribe to Austin Flipsters on YouTube.
Of course.
If people want to be entertained and get a nugget of real estate knowledge along the way, they seriously should subscribe to us and follow us on Instagram. But the amazing thing about social media and the internet is there are so many high quality folks out there where you can dive deep in any aspect of the real estate game, from investing to the construction science of it, to the acquisitions of the properties. It's the easiest time to get started, because there are so many great resources out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Well, thank you, Lauren and Lincoln, for spending some time and talking with me today. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Those were good tips on property values there. When buying a distressed property, it's important to calculate the after repair value, or the ARV. That's the estimated value of a home after you reno or rehab it. Like Lincoln mentioned, when deciding how much to offer, use the 70% rule. Don't invest more than 70% of a property's ARV. So for example, if a home's ARV is $300,000, you shouldn't pay more than $210,000 for the home. The Flipster's best advice? Make sure to create a realistic budget and timeline. And if you're planning on going full BRRRR, don't forget to find some solid renters. When coming up with rent, make sure it's fair for your local market while still producing positive cash flow for you. To do this, just add up all your carrying costs, your mortgage payments, insurance, taxes, incidentals, then add a 10 to 15% markup for yourself. The method might sound easy, but there are plenty of risks. It requires a ton of patience, attention to detail, and of course, math. But the BRRRR, when done smartly, can produce passive income and build your real estate portfolio over and over. Your first simple step to a real estate investing future? Crunch the numbers following the Austin Flipsters formula. Then head over to Rocket Mortgage to start your refinancing today. Thank you to the Austin Flipsters for coming on the show today. If you guys want to see more big change, you can click right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you never miss a future episode.